The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Born to be alive. You're listening to Rosie Pekar on Until Now. And if you'd like to join the live chat, go across to w4cy.com and just click on the right-hand side and let me know you're here and any questions that you may have. Today, I'm going to take a visit to the dark side of our mind. And the reason why is because no matter where we are, or wherever you are in the world listening to me right now and wherever I end up being, we seem to be faced with, so many different calamities and tragedies and difficulties and dramas. And fortunately, with mental health awareness finally out of the closet, and coincidentally, Jupiter in Scoopiter. There's my new combination for Jupiter in Scorpio. It's Scoopiter. For the next 13 months, a lot of hidden aspects of ourselves will come to the forefront for an opportunity to deal with our hidden stuff we've tucked away in the crevices of our being that is holding us back from living fully, experiencing life fully. So those bits and pieces will come to the forefront with an opportunity to deal with them once and for all. And these are the things that cause contrast. I'm going to use that word within our life. But that contrast for some comes at the cost of losing a life in the process. And that's my purpose. And I'm glad that there's a few of you here. I am certainly here, and I have to make my apologies that you've had replays for the last couple of weeks because of the fact my little boy, and this is part of the purpose of the topic today, was struck down with the nasty strain of influenza that we had here in Australia, and we still do have. And we'd actually spent the night in hospital the night before, so I was in absolutely no state of mind to come and talk to people on air and share something inspiring and something worth listening to, because my mental state was tired, exasperated, and a simple word is dark. It was full of the shadows, the grey stuff. And all of us get this way from different experiences. Now, this nasty strain that they had here, I was just telling Rebel previously, is a young 8-year-old girl, also named Rosie, lost her life, sadly, to this influenza flu. Nothing but the common flu that we're so used to. And not only did, tragically her parents and all those that love her experience the loss of Rosie, there was also a good friend of mine up here on the Gold Coast where I live, whose daughter, who was only 2 years older than my son, had contracted and gone to the same hospital that my son went to, and they had simply said, look, give them Panadol, which is our form locally of, what you guys have over there as there's my choice of words, a kid's painkiller, a harmless pharmaceutical, medication, more or less, to keep the fever down and at the same time keep the fluids up. Now, sadly for my friend, they went away and they came back, and they went away and they came back, and they went away and they came back because their daughter was not getting any better. And they just kept saying, keep taking the Panadol to reduce the fever, keep the fluids up. They finally went and demanded an X-ray, and the X-ray revealed that her lungs were filled with fluid. So they had to surgically remove that fluid from her, and she was then spent several days in hospital recovering. And my boy had contracted this in the midst of her scenario, and it was very unexpected and extremely sudden. So it's not like a cold medicine. It's not at all like the normal flu that you start to get some symptoms, a bit of coughing or a runny nose or those sort of things. This was a flu that came about instantly. And I mean, we were riding bikes in the beautiful sunshine, enjoying our day. I looked across at him. His lips were grey. His face was white. He had to stop the bike. He got off the bike. He was shaking. He was freezing cold and then burning hot, soaked in sweat. And then he was crying in tears that he was in such pain, which for me, you know your own kids. This was completely, behavior that wasn't his normal. And it was that instantaneous and that fast. And that's sadly how, it had affected those others, is because it shuts down organs really quickly. Now, that's a really dark and dire story. The fortunate news is I believe there's 5 followed by about 16 zeros. So I can't even say what that number is of millions of viruses that exist. The good thing is, out of all of those experiences, so many of it experience it, including this strain that sadly has been fatal, that most of us do not suffer those consequences. And as one listener's asked, how did this work so quickly? It worked so quickly because of the fact that it was shutting down organ processes, the liver, the kidney, that it was just putting too much strain on them so fast. And that's why my son, he couldn't drink anything or take the Panadol because he was just throwing up nonstop bile. So, and his body was working overtime. Now, as I said to him later, his body working like that is a good thing. We tend to look at, pain and difficulty as if it's such a terrible thing in our lives. Now, you're going to go, Rosie, you've lost the plot. It's terrible. Who puts their hand up and says, pick me, I want any of this stuff? No, none of us do. But as I said to him later, honey, it's an indicator that your immune system is so strong. It went into fight mode instantly. It was able to be aware that this was not part of your body, that this was a part that wasn't good for your body, that it fought so ferociously to get that stuff out of you so quickly. So that is the good aspect of it. And those that have listened to me for a while will be thinking, yep, only Rosie can find something good about throwing up and being violently ill and near death's door. Well, yes, that's part of today's purpose, is the fact that mental health awareness, as I said, has come out of the closet. We're aware that life is mixed with lots of incidents and events, be they natural health emergencies, be they, every time I look at you guys in the US, last time I spoke to you, you're in the midst of floods. Now I look and you're in the midst of fires. Other parts of the world are in the midst of earthquakes and tremors, and, there is so much that, we can look at, and we can sit there and go, oh, look at the world. There's so many terrible things. As one listener's commented, that is man-made sickness, has to be. Why do people do these things? Well, yes, there are people that do bad, dark, terrible things. But as I'm wanting to put in a perspective, there are so many more of us who do the exact opposite. And this is the power of where I choose to sit at and, in the driver's seat of my life, in that seat that's getting me to more of what I want and away from that unwanted. Now, mental health awareness has become quite public with a lot of different, celebrities and individuals shining the light on it by saying, especially so that young kids become aware that in one sense, it's not unusual to feel depressed, to have a major incident or a major depressive disorder. And I think that they call it persistent depressive disorder when it continues for about 2 years. And for that term depression, which I break words down so that we can understand what it is, we are depressing in on. So it's stuff that's a burden. It's pressing in on us. It's not outside of us. It's in us. And that's pressing in on stuff we've got internally. So depression, within Australia, we have 1 in 7 out of the young people, so 1 person in 7 that experiences this persistent depressive disorder. Now, that's a depressive statistic on its own. That's 112,000 Australians. That's absolutely abysmal. Add to that, any 1 year, there's about 1 million adult Aussies that, again, suffer this persistent depressive disorder. Don't worry, I'm not going to stay on depressing stuff forever. It's just so that we can understand that irrespective of what we're up against, we are so much stronger than anything that ever comes up against us. So in the US, they rate that at about 3.3 million. And in 2015, the statistics were 16.1 million people had one major depressive disorder. And considering, 16.1 million people that had one major depressive disorder have got access to all sorts of harmful weapons and vehicles, that of itself is alarming. So there comes a time that we have to start our self-care support systems. And, it is when you have got an alert system, an activation that is immediate, that stuff isn't right, clap your hands. Hooray, it's working. It's like my son's immunity system. He got ill so quick that worked to his advantage. He was recovered in less than 3 days and with no antibiotics whatsoever. I used honey and cayenne pepper that he gargled in like a hot water, like a tea solution. And he only received the medication at the hospital, whatever they gave him to stop him throwing up, so he could actually stay consuming liquids. And then after that, it was all natural. It was just rest, honey, cayenne, hot water, some ginger and honey in hot water again, and that's all he had. And within 3 days, he was 100% clear and back to his normal self because he had such a strong immunity. Now, that's important for us to become aware of within our own lives, that when we experience this darkness, this grey, it's an indicator. It's to us that support system we've got for self-care to say stuff in our life isn't going well for us. And one listener's asked, what is that recipe for that? Well, for any sore throats, for any infections within the throats, I've used it since he was little. It's cayenne pepper, which is like your red peppers, spicy, hot, and we get it from the supermarket. You just put it in it with a teaspoon of honey in some hot water, like a cup of tea, and stir it up. And what he does, he gargles half the cup, so gargles it all around his throat and spits it out. Don't swallow it when you gargle it because you're swallowing infected, crappy, toxic gunk, and you don't want that staying in your system. So he gargles the first half, and then the second half he drinks, because it is nothing other than food. So there is nothing toxic going into him. So understanding that black is a colour, darkness exists, but they both provide contrast to our lives. And that's a good thing, because it lets us know that we're not on the road to what it is that we're wanting. Grey, we can describe that as a day. Grey, we can describe it as an area in our lives that we don't have clarity, that, is mixed or confusing to us. It's not light. Our minds get muddled too. And with such, as I said, alarming statistics of how many minds get muddled, you can take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. So, at that time that you think you're crazy, well, there's comfort knowing there's a lot of you in the same boat, and that includes myself. Our minds do get muddled. I was on a TV show only a couple of weeks ago, an interview for a program called Tough Times Never Last. And what I appreciate is the fact that they're sharing from so many people of all different walks of life, all different life experiences, their own personal difficulties. And they're sharing their own personal difficulties, not to say, look at me, this is terrible, and aren't I successful and clever, or I got through it. They're sharing it from the perspective of saying, look at me, I'm just like you. I'm the same as you. And this is what happened. This was hard. This was difficult. But hey, look at me now. I'm at this other side. And that shows as a light to other people who are caught up in, the spiraling effects of, drugs, alcohol, abuse, different environments that, there's too many to sort of cover for everyone in the world. There isn't a one size fits all. But what there is, and what my intention for today was simple things that we can do for ourselves as a self-care support system when we're alerted immediately that we're in a grey state or a black state, because we don't want to get it to that 2-year disorder. I like to think I'm a fast learner, but at times in my life, there's probably evidence to the contrary. I may not be too quick. Other times I am. But now, as I mentioned, that we've got Jupiter in Scorpio, part of that energy is that this stuff that has been kept stuffed down inside of us, the difficulties, the challenges, it can no longer hide in the crevices anymore. This energy is here to have long hidden secrets come forward, and they're long hidden secrets that have kept humanity inhumane. Where people have been able to do those atrocious things. As one listener commented, very early in the piece, why do people do that sort of stuff? Again, that's not the area. I don't want to know how those sort of minds work, because focusing on unwanted puts me in that unwanted state, and like attracts like. I'm focusing on what's wanted. I'm focusing on the humanity that exists, and there are vast aspects of that. And where I've got parts of me that lack compassion, I would rather those parts now start to be exposed for myself, so I can see that as like my immunity being activated in my self-care support system. So one listener's asked, and for any others, if you just joined the chat on w4cy.com, you're listening to Rosie Pekar on Until Now. Yes, I talk quickly. You'll learn to listen faster. Just go across to the right-hand side and you can click on the link and ask any question that you like. And one question just asks is, what do you have to do to be in a happy state of mind? Well, I'm going to be getting to that. Not just a happy state of mind, because some of us can't reach for happiness yet. Again, this topic arose because not just my son's incident, but at the same time, I've got 3 very close friends that are dealing with cancer treatment, and rather intensive cancer treatment, commencing this week as well. And they're dearly beloved friends. Another one, a best friend, has just recently lost her father. And again, for her, the difficulty was, what can I cling on to? What is my life raft when I'm there in the dark? And, I've had a lot of experiences previously. That's why I've written so many books, not again to say, look at Rosie, look at what she's done. It's to shine a light and say, what I can do and get through, so too can you. So now we're going to use this time wisely when Jupiter is in Scorpio, because it's working well for those who've suffered and continue to suffer at the hands of others, because those burdens are now energetically getting lifted. And a burden shared that's evenly distributed soon becomes no burden at all, just compassion and resolution. And by November, when Jupiter enters Sagittarius, the chickens are coming home to roost, which is what we say in Australia, meaning that you will have the payoff of all that you've done in this time. So this really is a crux time, a pivotal time, a powerful time to be very clear on your own self-care support system. And as you introduce and stay instructing yourself on this, others learn from us. They learn by our example. The words don't teach, experiences do. So we're going to use this time wisely and invest proactively and positively in the moment we've got right now. So, number one step is no mind anymore to unwanted, unless you want reactive, unless you want regurgitated, unless you want pain, unless you want to be poisoned and polluted with that stinking thinking. So when we talk problems, I've only expressed a problem to use it as an emphasis. If you notice, I've not stayed in that problem. I've pivoted to feeling good. I've pivoted to what's powerful that arose from that situation. And every master arose from a disaster. Lock that in your brain. That is there at any given time. Yes, I use little sayings and acronyms because it helps me. It helps remind me, and remind is the important state there. We always have a mind. We always have thoughts about things. Sometimes those thoughts work really well for us. Other times those thoughts work really well against us. And that's where we remind, we refresh. So in order to have whatever state of mind it is that you do want, we're going to use, again, that simple acronym that Rosie loves so much, and that is to map it. And that's spelled M-A-P-P. Yes, I put 2 P's because I wanted to be a little bit different. And we know that whenever we make a plan to go on any journey, we use a map, be it the GPS in the car or vehicle, be it paper maps as we once had, building a house, we have a blueprint, putting together a bicycle, we have instructions from the store, even furniture from IKEA, though. Those that can follow that are masters in and of themselves. I don't know whether you have IKEA in other locations, but we have it here in Australia, and it certainly is a language unto itself. So with that mind map, now years ago I went to a business school in Bali, and I went there several years running, and this business school attracted entrepreneurs from all around the globe, and we came there for positive intentions of our own businesses, but also positive intentions that everyone we interacted got a gift from us in some way. So our team specifically that actually won on the Bali Business Challenge accepted the name that I had nominated for us, and that name was Gold Mind. And I called us Gold Mind so that we became aware that we wanted 24-carat thinking. We wanted the purest of the purest level of thinking possible, because our life was going to emerge from that creative state. So you can call it a gold mine, call it a diamond mine. It makes no difference. Or so long as it's not a coal mine, because a coal mine, coal eventually under pressure over a long, long period of time and a lot of pressure eventually turns into a diamond. However, I don't believe we have to go through such difficult, dire and desperate circumstances to reach our compassionate, humane, easygoing, beautiful natures that already exist inside of us. And, I likened this to, one client recently and said, it's a bit like when you look at a lump of clay. Some people only see the lump of clay or the block of stone, but a person who is aware of their creative ability to manifest only sees that lump of clay as pure opportunity. They only see that block of stone as pure opportunity, because they know what they can remove and cut away to reveal what's already hidden inside. That beautiful statue, that beautiful model, whatever exists inside. So this is how we can find it inside us. We place it there first. And if you can think it, it's because it already exists. So if you're thinking anything whatsoever of what, brings ease, enjoyment, delight, excitement, fun, anything that puts a smile on your face the second you think it, then you ink it. That's you. That's what you want to put in your mind. So part of that map analogy is you've got to mind it first. That's what that M stands for. You've got to put it in your mind. You've got to plant the seeds. You plant the seeds of a tomato plant. It's a tomato seed that you plant. If you plant the seed of poison ivy, it's poison ivy that you will get. There's no mistaking what comes out. It's the seeds that are there. So your mind now is fertile ground. It is fertile and ready for the uptake. Remember, this is Jupiter in Scorpio. Right now is the time where you've got good luck on your side. You've got opportunity on your side. The only thing that you may not have on your side is yourself. And the only way this is revealed is exactly as one listener's just commented, what if you don't know your own mind? And that is such a powerful point. Exactly. You know, when I learnt this so many years ago, I thought rather arrogantly, I know what I think about. I know my thoughts on things. I know my views. I'm not my own worst enemy. You know, how ridiculous. I was unaware. You know, you're thinking 60,000 thoughts every single day. There is no way we're going to be aware, and that's for the slower models, of all of those thoughts. So I did an exercise where I started writing every single thought that crossed my mind. Now, I don't recommend for you to do this unless you are absolutely bored out of your brain and you want to get writer's cramp and you want to discover just how much drivel actually goes through your own mind, which is what I found out. There was a few nuggets of wisdom and a vast amount of just ordinary, everyday crap. And I call it that because every time a person walked past me, I would make note of that. If, you know, I felt hot and uncomfortable, you know, my mind noted that. If I felt, you know, something itch on my left knee, I noted that. You know, it was so much that was just inane dribble. So we don't need to focus on what's already in there. We're going to mind it. We're planting it. So, you know, this is how we get on our own side, is we think of the absolute best. Look at the people around you that you admire, that you respect, that you look up to, that you think, oh, I love the way they do that. I remember I played squash, competitive squash, for many, many years. And I remember a couple that would show up at the squash courts and they were always laughing and joking and, you know, having a glass of wine. And, you know, they weren't the best squash players. You know, I don't even know if they got on the squash court. I'm pretty sure they did at some point in time. But what they were was always engaging and entertaining. Wherever they showed up, they brought the party with them. The party was in their personality. Now, that's not everyone's personality. But if you want enjoyment and entertainment in your life, you bring it. If you want love and harmony in your life, you bring it. If you want prosperity in your life, guess what? You bring it. Now, some people are going to scratch their head and go, oh, my father once did, you know, before he passed away. He said, you know, Rosie, I see you doing all these good things. You know, I'd been in the paper a few times of different projects I was supporting and endorsing. And he said, you know, what can I be doing? Here he is sitting in the nursing home thinking, you know, I'm just an old man. You know, this excusitis, you know, we kick that to the curb. What can I be doing? What have I got to give? And I thought, what you've got is with you at all times. You are never separate from you. You are the gift. Get that message. You listening, you are the gift. Get that. And as you get that, that's what you give. So I watched him as, you know, the nurses came in and, you know, we hadn't grown up being used to physical touching, you know, cuddling, that sort of stuff, or expressions of love or kissing on the cheek. And they've come in and all of a sudden he's grasping at hands and he's holding hands and he's wanting to connect, like looking right into their eyes. You know, at that stage, I don't know what he actually did see because he'd had terrible short-sightedness for such a length of time. But the grin from ear to ear and the joy and the love that that man was expressing, I had the pleasure of receiving that gift in that moment. So a listener has commented, what if you are not all that? That is the first belief that has to be kicked to the curb, because that is the first big fat lie you've encountered. And that is, we are all that. And as we start to recognize that we are all that, that's looking at that block of clay. It's looking at that mound of rock that someone else might see as just being a rock, just being a lump of clay. No, the Creator knows it is far more than that. And you are now in alignment with the Creator, that you know far more than that. So what is the best way to live in the moment? Well, we're back to this point of power, which is now, which is the only guarantee we've been given. And that's what, I've said to my friends. They're concerned about different things I do, travels I do, places I go to, what could happen to me, where. And it's like all we're guaranteed ever is a moment. This moment right now. You, all that are listening to me right now, are generously sharing yourselves, honoring me with your presence, which is your present in this moment. Without you, there is no purpose for me with this, But then as I say that, yes, there is, because I'm always hearing me. I'm always listening to me. I am my number one fan. I am my number one support system in my self-care. So what is the way to live in the moment? Know what you're putting into your mind. You're going to map it now. So you've got to know, what is it you want in your mind? You want thoughts that express. We covered this a few weeks back, the important ideals that represent you. For me, they are ease. I love things being easy. I love peace. I love well-being, especially within my body. The more days I have well-being, the better it gets. I thoroughly love that. I love humor. I love any opportunity to laugh and lighten up. I love affection. And affection might simply be a person smile at me instead of frown at me. These are all moments, and it's the moments that matter, that make up our lives. This is the currency, how we're living it. So now that you know what it is that you want to put in your mind, and don't worry, thank you, you seem to be a happy person. Well, don't let, listening to me right now fool you, because at times I can be angry, at times I can be sad. I'm a combination of all the contrasts that exists. And, that is being human. The difference is, were you always happy? Hell no. You need to read a few of my books. Kick Butt for starters, the very first one. This is where, how did you overcome the sadness in life? Well, the first thing, you have to identify it. Once you can identify it, it's not working for you. There comes a point that you go, stop, I don't want any more. And as I identified it, I looked at those people, like the couple I mentioned at Squash, that brought a party with them wherever they went. I was thinking, how do they do that? I was watching other successful people around me that weren't smarter than me. They hadn't done more than me. They didn't have more hours in the day than me. The only difference I could see was that they had something I didn't. And the something they had that I didn't was a belief in themselves. So that belief in yourself is the biggest, fattest seed that should be planted in that gold mine of yours, that belief. Because once you start to plant it, then you start to see it. Other people will say, I only believe it when I see it. Doesn't happen that way. You are the creator. You are in alignment with the creator. And in doing so, you lay claim to all it is that you actually want. This is why I say pay attention to what's wanted. Give no mind to unwanted, because that unwanted crap sticks. You've only got to talk about a problem to a couple of friends to see how the unwanted sticks. Not only will they tell you their version of the problem, they'll expand upon it, and then they'll talk about the uncles, the nephews, the co-workers, whoever else had such a problem, and all of a sudden it's amplified. We dial down the drama and amp up the appreciation. So in order to stay in a mind that, as I said, you're guaranteed a moment, but you're also guaranteed the one person you're going to spend the rest of your life with will be yourself. So as we choose what we're putting into our mind, we've got to make it believable, because in the beginning, as some people might think, and at the beginning, I didn't think all that much of myself. I didn't have a positive view and a positive perspective. I didn't start out that way. I intentionally developed it along the way. And that's probably important to hear. It makes no difference what starting point you're at, so long as you start. So starting with the seed, your own seeds, not what someone else tells you. My son, he's just gone off to a camp today. He's 9 years of age and he's away for a couple of nights at a school camp altogether. And as he's packing his clothes, his mum, make sure there's no pink in there. There's no purple in there. I'll never live it down. God forbid. So again, mum comes in with the lecture. What other people think of you is none of your business. And as I started talking to him, saying, how could you let someone who has such a small mind and such a small view in life take away a moment of joy or happiness or lightness out of your life? Would you give them that power? Would you give such a small-minded person power? No, you do not. You pick what you are going to feed. You feed your own thoughts, your own value, that, you love all the colours. They all exist. Some others might prefer to wear black and nothing but black. Each to their own. But again, you select for yourself and you find the thoughts that you can feed that make you feel better. So already at a young age, despite my influence regularly, he's finding a challenge in between what thoughts he's going to choose to think, because I'm not thinking his thoughts for him. However, I want him in a position of power that he selects thoughts that support him, not thoughts that defeat him. And as we know, 16.1 million with a major depressive disorder in the US alone in 1 year, that's adults. That's a phenomenal level of people that are overcome by stuff that is burdening them on the inside that has become too much. So when we've minded, this is part of the mapping program for what it is that we want, we then are able to action it. And that's the A for the map. So when we are able to action it means that we can break it down into steps to take that we need to support ourselves in our beliefs. That's all that action is about. It's about supporting ourselves in a belief. So, for example, I'm writing another book at the moment. I've written others before, so I already have a belief there that I can write a book. But the very first time that I wrote a book, what I did is I broke it down into bite-sized pieces, and I determined I was going to write 3,000 words every day. That was a big task. So then I broke it down further and said, okay, if not 3,000 words, how do I make this task really easy and really light and really effortless? Because remember, easy is an essence of mine that I enjoy within my life. I enjoy things being easy now. So I thought, okay, one of my steps to take would be, research publishers, look online at publishers' names. Another step might be get pen and paper, sit beside bed. That's another step to take. Another step might be simply, read someone else's book. So I did lots and lots of steps so that way every day I felt like a success, because every day I had a small step I could take. So if I just picked the pen up, that was on my to-do list. Yay, I've succeeded. Some are laughing, going, oh my God, Rose, you really are an overachiever, aren't you? No, that's the idea. The idea is set yourself up to succeed. No matter what, you are creating a success mind. You put it in your mind that you are successful, that you find it easy and effortless and enjoyable now to do things, that you are now activated and in alignment with all that you enjoy. These are... Make it simple. Keep it simple. So as some listeners has asked, another book? Yep, this is book number 8 I'm up to now. How do you get it done? You get it done by breaking it down into bite-sized pieces. It's like the saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So when they're small steps, it's doable. If they're mammoth steps, it becomes overwhelming. It's a burden. That gold mine has turned into a coal mine instead, and it's hard and it's difficult. And it's, again, just as I'm even using that language, we get the drift that, this isn't fun. So keep it light, keep it easy, keep it enjoyable, keep it in a way that entertains you, that it inspires you. When you are also taking action, action includes being able to observe all the synchronicities that line up for you. The people that show up, the opportunities that pass before your eyes, the little things. My son is forever paying attention to synchronicities. And, he will talk about a song, for example, what was it this morning? It wasn't a song. He spoke on a topic. Oh, that's right, talking in your sleep. And he said, because he's going away on this camp and he sleepwalks. So he's talking in the car saying, oh, Mum, I discovered I'm not alone in sleepwalking because there's another kid in my room that he sleep talks, another one, he's sleepwalked. And he said, so I'm not alone at the camp in doing this. And then on the radio comes the host talking about sleep talking and sleepwalking, and he laughs and he's noticed it straight away. He's saying, oh my God, yet again. So he's observing the synchronicities that show up, in a sense, just to say, I hear you. I know what you want. I'm harnessing all the universal energies. You're talking about it. You're paying attention to it. It means that's your it that you want. So make sure whatever you're speaking about and whatever you're observing and paying attention to is on the side of wanted as opposed to unwanted. So that's in your action steps. Pay attention to that. And in your action steps is also to initiate, to activate the feeling as if you've already got it. This is powerful belief building criteria. You act as if you already have it. Imagine, that imagination that Albert Einstein said is more important than knowledge. You have it ready, available at your fingertips 24/7. You are the one who activates it. So if you are going to spend your time imagining anything, imagine how you will feel as you become what it is that's so wanted. And we only do things because of the payoff we feel. Did you write a book on this is one of the questions? Well, the very first book, Time to Kick Butt, B-U-T, not B-U-double-T, that first book addressed a lot of this. It addressed all the challenges and the difficulties that see us caught up in failure. It addressed then the how-to, and then it addressed how you can recheck that you're on track. There's lots of audios and articles, and I'll give this to you now in case I forget, at www.kickbutt with one T, kickbut.com.au, because I'm Australian, and you'll see that there's lots of audio, lots of articles to help you in this process. The last books I've written are more on a spiritual bent, and they're quite in-depth in a scientific perspective with physics, a lot of ancient history, a lot of things that I love unusual and unexplained and unorthodox, and mixing it all up together with people. It interests and intrigues me a great deal, and that's what I share. But here I wanted to make sure that everyone has a really base playing field that we can start anew and lay a foundation that's firm and everlasting for ourselves, because, well, the foundation already is there. It's more or less revealing the truth of it to yourself as opposed to the lies you've been taught about yourself over the many years. So one of the questions is, so you have your books in audio book form. Sorry, the books aren't in audio book form at this point in time. At a later time when they are, I'll let you know. However, there are other audios there. The You Differ series is what I recommend, and this is all complimentary. The books obviously aren't, but the audio and the articles are. It's all under media at the website. They will help tremendously to become more aware of what's going on, especially on that dark side of our mind, that shadow side, the area that, at times we're unaware is operating. It sort of operates a bit under the radar, and we only become observant of it when there's a catastrophe or a crisis or, some dilemma occurring in our lives. For myself, I pay attention. Like if I've turned around and yelled at my son for something, I realize, it's not from what he's done. It's from stuff inside of me. There's been a little bit of pressure, a little bit of stress that goes on me, and this is what pops out. It wouldn't pop out if it weren't already there. So I use that as an opportunity not to beat myself up and go, gee, Rosie, you're a terrible mum. Here you are working as an inspirational, motivational speaker and author all around the world, and look at you yelling at your poor little child, God forbid. No, it's an opportunity for me to identify that there is stuff in me that needs addressing. How do I release it? Well, we're getting to that. So one listener's asked, why do we change in a time of crisis? It's highlighted that there is a necessity to change. You know, we've already hit rock bottom. We can't handle it anymore. You know, we've already lost the home. The horse has already bolted, as we say in Australia. It's too late to shut the gate. So we work out, okay, I need to do better because this isn't working. So crisis is just an attention getter. So part of our mapping, we mind it, we action it, and then we protect it. Whatever you put in your mind, those steps you choose to take, the synchronicities you're paying attention to, don't share it with the poo-pooers and the naysayers. And I'm quite sure you use these terms all over the world, but they mean the critics, the haters. They're the well-meaning friends who shoot you down, who want to explain to you how you can't do what it is you think, or want to drag up episodes, part of your history in the past, anything as if to say you are not good enough. So protect it. This is a private, personal area. Keep out, not for anyone else. You know, don't show your little flame to someone who might go and blow it out. Okay, listeners have asked, can you catch yourself in the process of acting out? All the time. It's great to be able to identify, you know, where you're at to then go, okay, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what you can do to change when you catch yourself. And if you could realize you are doing an action that is acting out, can you change the action? Yep, you sure can. So I'll give you the final P, which is to persist. And that's persist in promoting your passion personally. If you don't excite it, it won't ignite it. So you got to catch fire first to be able to catch on to others. So make sure that what you're putting in your mind is something that excites and delights you. It's got to be able to catch on. You know, you promote that passion personally. You know, this is really pertinent. And, you know, when you protect it, only share with those that you know are positive, powerful, or pertinent to what it is your passion is. Or a Pekar. Because, you know, if it's a Pekar, you know, they're going to be the first to be able to actively promote what's the best about it for that. And, you know, as the listeners commented, it may be too late at that time, and I guess it depends on the action you did. Like, you know, I come from an ex-cop background. So, yes, if you've blown a hole in someone's head, you can't undo that. You know, I've been extreme there. What you do is you operate from where you're at. You know, we can't go back and change, however dire, desperate and terrible or whatever drama has just been. We're operating in the point of now. And in the point of now is where we identify what tools have I got to work for me. And yeah, I hope none of my listeners get to that extreme too. I agree with you. But I just use extreme examples because people understand immediately then what I talk about. And then they go, oh, thank God, I'm not that bad. I'm not up to that. So, but there is a difference between those that do and those that don't. And, you know, it's what you've got stored in your own personal bank within your own mind. So within that, we've got several ways, and I think I'll follow on with this next week because there's a lot of information here to share. But I'm going to share that as our minds get muddled, the first thing to do to unmuddled, and we've got access to these things at all times, the first thing to do is to breathe. Big, deep breath in, big, deep breath out. You know, oxygen is required to all the cells of your being. You were one single cell. That one single cell divided and then multiplied 52 times to make the trillions of cells that are sitting there listening to this voice right now. So that's how amazing, incredible, astounding, and phenomenal, and that's the harnessing of energetic level you have access to. You are far more than all the stars you can possibly see within our galaxy to start with. So I'm going to do a quick recap so that way we can pick up where I've left off for next week in this last 30 seconds. So in order to be able to make our changes, we make our map. That map is put it in your mind and you mind it. This is your gold mind. Second is you action it. You create your small steps to take, pay attention to those synchronicities, and you activate that feeling as if you already have it now. You protect it from those that are unwanted, and you keep it private, and you persist. You persist. And next week, I'll recap this for you all again, and we'll start up, and I'll pick up on the rest that I've got to share. So thank you all for joining me here yet again. You make my day and my week wonderful in knowing that there are wonderful, caring people on this planet. Until then, you've been listening to Rosie Pekar on Until Now. And yes, I do cover so much, and I do talk quickly, and aren't you lucky? My mouth can't keep up with my mind. Talk to you all next week, guys.